Hello, time for another story. And today we've got Gerald back. It's Gerald and the Mysterious Footprints. Gerald was strolling by the river, despite there being snow on the ground and icy blocks nudging their way downstream. It was winter in the woods, and Gerald's footsteps were muffled by the snow. Although, as he has furry ears, he didn't need a muffler to keep them warm. He looked behind him and saw his footprints in the snow, and looked ahead to see some more larger footprints leading away from the towpath and into the woods. I wonder whose footprints those are, thought Gerald. Being an inquisitive cat, he followed them through a gap in the hedge. His shoulder brushed the bush, and a tumble of snow fell on his back. Brrr, shivered Gerald. That's very cold. The footprints continued, and soon Gerald found himself on a path leading away from the stream. I wonder where these footprints lead, he muttered to himself as he carefully studied the ground. He looked up and could see the moon beginning to shine in the sky, but his face was soon covered by clouds. He thought about his last adventure with the man in the moon and realized that he was feeling somewhat hungry. It must be time for a snack, and the moon is out, so there must be some cheese around. Gerald was a cat, although he sometimes felt like a mouse, as he loved cheese so much. His friend Harry the head mouse would often bring him some tasty tidbits for his supper, along with a piping hot pot of freshly brewed tea. Gerald was dreaming of cheese and tea, and hadn't noticed that he had lost the trail of the strange footprints and was now deep in the woods themselves. The snow had disappeared to be replaced with a brown mush as water dripped through the branches, making Gerald's feet all muddy. Oh dear, he whispered to himself. I think I should be getting home, but which way do I go? Gerald looked around. There were trees over there, and more trees over there, and even more trees over there. They all looked the same, and Gerald had no idea which way to go. Crumbs, he thought to himself, but that just made him more hungry. Lovely crumbs falling from a big block of cheddar cheese with crackers and pickle. Dreaming of his tummy didn't help him know which way to go. It was getting darker in the woods, and Gerald thought that he had better set off to try and find his way home. Suddenly, there was some rustling in the trees, and through the gloom Gerald thought he saw a pair of eyes looking at him. He began to worry. There could be all sorts in these woods. Chipplewolds, or sprogglebacks, or even mangleworms. He shivered some more just at the mere thought of them. He set off, looking over his shoulder to see if the eyes were following him. They were. Gerald gathered pace and started to run through the slushy mud. He stopped and looked back. The eyes were still there. He was getting very scared now, and he didn't know which way to go home. The woods were getting darker. The clouds in the sky were getting thicker. It looked like it might snow some more. The rustling in the trees began again. Oh dearie me, what shall I do? Gerald said to himself. Best to hide. He looked around and there was a small pile of logs nearby. I'll run over and hide behind those. And that is exactly what he did. By now, Gerald's teeth were chattering. His waistcoat was not warm enough now that night had fallen, and he had forgotten to wear his overcoat when he was walking along the side of the stream earlier on. Suddenly there was a whoosh behind him and a massive blast of cold air. Gerald ducked down and shut his eyes tight. If he couldn't see it, then it would go away, he thought. A splutter and a thump, and then quiet. Gerald opened his eyes a little bit and peeped out from behind the log pile. Oh my goodness! There was a giant pair of eyes staring right at him. Gerald was scared that it could be a Sproggleback come to eat him up. Hoot! Gerald knew that voice, and he opened his eyes. In front of him was Olive the Owl. Hello, Gerald, said Olive. What are you doing out here in the middle of the woods in the dark? Oh, Olive, I'm so glad it was you and not a Sproggleback. I was following some footprints and got lost amongst the trees, and then I saw these big eyes following me, and I was frightened, so I hid behind this pile of logs. Oh, you silly. That was only me. I was just keeping an eye on you, just in case, as I thought I had heard a Sproggleback earlier on. Oh, goodness. Thank you, Olive, said Gerald, but I am a bit lost. Do you know the way back to my house? Oh, yes. We owls are very clever, you know. Follow me. Olive jumped up and began to fly through the trees. Come on, keep up, Gerald. Owls fly faster than cats can run, so Gerald had quite a job trying to keep up with Olive, but eventually they burst out of the woods and through the bushes to the edge of the stream. Thanks, Olive. I know where I am now, said Gerald. My house is not far away. Would you like to come back for some cheese and tea? Oh, yes, that would be nice, she hooted. So Gerald trudged through the snow back to his house, with Olive flying overhead, but he couldn't help wondering whose footprints he was following earlier. Perhaps it really was a Sproggleback. Good night.